Dear guests, welcome to the third and last day of our summit. Today we will be hosting distinguished panelists on various topics at our panels. And the subject of this panel is Investing in the Common Future of Europe, Time for Constructive Vision and Substantial Action. Our keynote speaker is Mr. Egemen Bağış, co-president of Global Advisory Board of ICP and former Minister of European Union, Turkey. Thank you.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually impressed. I wasn't expecting this panel to have such a distinguished audience because I thought it would reflect on the level of relations between Turkey and EU, which doesn't have much of an audience these days. But yesterday, I was informed that a new recent poll indicates, despite everything that is going on, there is still 30% or a little bit more support in Turkey with the Turkish public opinion for Turkey's accession to become a member of European Union. Thinking of what has been going on, I think that ratio is quite promising. Of course, it's not as high as it used to be. I remember back in 2003, 2004, 2005, we had around 78% support for Turkey's accession. But looking at the recent history of the relationship, we see a lot of unkept promises on both ends, I have to admit. And that has naturally reflected on the public opinion. But I would expect it to be lower. If we consider what has been going on, and maybe it would be good to refresh our memories, since the dates when we had that high of a support, many of the chapters are blocked. There are literally no chapters right now that Turkey can open. We cannot close any chapters because of a council decision. France continues to block 4 chapters. Cyprus continues to block another 5. The council decision blocks the opening of 8 chapters and closing of all chapters. On the very issues that Turkey is criticized, such as freedom of speech, freedom of expression, media, human rights, women's rights, everything that is actually covered under Chapter 23 and Chapter 24 cannot even be discussed because a lovely island in the Mediterranean just felt like blocking it. On top of all that, technical limitations, people in this country feel that they are insulted with the visa regime. We are trying to travel freely within Europe, which is a right that we believe we deserve because we're in the customs union since 1996. When our products can travel freely, it's simply illogical that our citizens cannot. We were getting close, and as the commissioner we hosted at the opening dinner said, we're in the last mile of this visa liberalization. But then they said, Turkey's anti-terrorism law is too tough. It needs to be softened. while they were coming up with this claim, they accepted United Arab Emirates into the Schengen, where citizens of UAE can travel without visas to any Schengen country. Of course, that creates another question in the Turkish public opinion. Is UAE more democratic than Turkey? Do they have more human rights? Are they more tolerant to terrorism? Then people start feeling a negative approach and they feel insulted. On top of that difficulty, this country went through a coup attempt. Unfortunately, July 2016, our parliament was bombed 11 times by our own warplanes. EU being the most important center of democracy, did not even bother condemning that attack that night, only next morning. And for months, no high-level EU representative bothered coming. It was the same commissioner who came to our opening dinner, who came a month later, and 2 weeks after the coup attempt, we had the British minister in charge of European affairs in Ankara. But as they say in US, a day late, a dollar short. People feel that our allies in NATO, our partners in EU, should have been there the next morning to applaud Turkey's determination to protect its democracy and the values that bring us all together under the EU. With all that difficulty, I still believe neither EU nor Turkey has the luxury to give up from this process. I always argued that EU is Turkey's dietitian. When we feel we have excess weight to get rid of, we go to a dietitian, and the dietitian prescribes a recipe for us. Eat this for breakfast, eat that for lunch, do 45 minutes of cardio activity. And when you listen to the dietitian, you actually become healthier. You lose weight, you get rid of the excess weight, and you're more fit. When we look at Europe today, the countries that have implemented EU rules and standards, who are in line with the Maastricht criteria, are doing economically well. But those who had been cheating are having an economic crisis. Therefore, as my president said back in 2004, if we have to rename the Copenhagen criteria and call it the Istanbul criteria and rename the Maastricht criteria and make them the Ankara criteria, we still have to implement those reforms. So the EU process is good for Turkey, it's good for Europe, but it is now more fashionable to criticize each other. And that reflects on the public opinion as well. Therefore, I'm still optimistic. Europe will have to go through an important process with this decision-making process which requires unanimity for everything. It's going to make things harder and harder as more member states are joining. But in the long run, EU is still the most important peace project in the history of mankind. As I said in the opening day of this forum, per capita prosperity is highest in Europe for two reasons. EU has ensured that there are no more wars among member states, and EU has also ensured that there's free travel and free trade among member states. Two logical, simple reasons for that prosperity. And I hope that becomes contagious and we can spread the idea of no war and trade all around the globe. Thank you for listening to me.
May I kindly invite Mr. Salah Mutapakani, co-chair of the Executive Board of ICP and chairman of Global Advisory Board, thank you, to deliver the reward to Mr. Egemen Bağış. Thank you.